Welcome to the weightlifting scoop. Got Travis Cooper and Glenn Pendlay here.
Hello.
Now, you may not know this, but James Tatum is the man with the manliest beard, with the most feminine burps.
Yeah, so I thought we were going to start this episode off.
Well, that was embarrassing.
And I was about to give a very manly, deep burp.
It didn't come out that way.
And no, it didn't come out that way. It's kind of high-pitched and squeaky. I wouldn't say feminine, because...
Well, it was close to feminine.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Good thing you lift a lot of weights so you can intimidate people.
Yeah, it's gotta have something on my side.
So you were doing one of the craziest stretches. Becca posted a picture of it. You had several bands, and you had it like pulling your hip.
Yeah, I wrapped a band around my ankle and then kind of tied it on there so it would stay and wouldn't like fling off. And then laid down on my stomach and my back and this band was about 6 feet high, too. So I'm laying on my stomach and it's pulling my leg up in the air and kind of giving myself like a little gap in the knee and ankle and hip, of course. It just looked pretty crazy. It looked like somebody had lassoed my foot and was dragging me away.
Well, we were making a joke saying that your parents probably used to tie you to a rope like that, you and Anthony, your brother, and just had you swim, pull the boat.
Well, that's not too far off. We for those of you that don't know, I grew up on a sailboat.
Everyone knows.
Everybody knows, yeah. I talk about it all the time, I guess. But when you're living on a sailboat and you get kind of bored when you're sailing, and because you're just sailing for hours on hours. And you're not going that fast. So we used to take our old windsurfing board and throw it in the water and then throw a line off the back of the boat and just hold on to the line and just kind of, I guess people call it scurfing, but it was on a windsurfing board behind a boat going like 6 knots.
So basically your parents were using you as shark bait.
Oh, yeah, really.
What does 6 knots mean? I know that's a...
It's slow. Term. I don't know how fast that is. Well, something interesting. That's how they used to tell speed is they had this little weight on the end of a rope and they had knots on the rope based on like different lengths. So then they'd throw the thing into the water, the end of the rope.
See how much of it floated,
or see how long it took for a certain amount of knots to pass through their fingers as it was gliding down in a certain amount of time. So if 15 knots passed through their hands as the rope was gliding away as they were sailing, then they would be going, that would be their speed, 15 knots. And then that's how they came up with that term.
So it was like a set amount of time, like 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and then, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then however many knots passed through in that set amount of time is how many knots it was going.
Yep. And then that's
pretty
how they
weird.
came up.
Never heard of that before.
Yeah, I don't know the time. It's been a while since I've freshened up on all my boating terms. And
well, I would think that it would be relative to the water speed.
Well,
that's probably what the difference is between looking at miles per hour or looking at knots, is you're looking at your speed relative to the speed of the water. Correct?
I think so. I'm not 100% sure about that, though.
Yeah, if you were going 5 miles per hour on a perfectly still day with the water perfectly still, I would think you would still be going 5 miles per hour. But if the water was going a certain amount of speed, your speed would basically be what your speed is minus whatever the water speed was.
Yeah. So that would definitely be a flaw in the way that they measured knots, but I don't know if they take that into account when they're doing, like, finding out how many knots you're traveling nowadays. Who knows? All those GPSs, man, they make things crazy.
They make things easier.
However you want to look at it.
Yeah, well, you don't have to be a master mariner anymore to navigate in the ocean.
I was thinking about that earlier today. I was like, if somebody just decided to go sailing, and they go and they just start sailing out into the Atlantic Ocean, and or maybe even the Caribbean, because that's a little bit harder because you got islands and you actually have to find the right island. If you're in the Atlantic Ocean, you can just sail west and find land. But if you're out there and
you sailed west, you'd be sailing through land.
Well, yeah. Let's say if you sailed east and then you got lost in ocean, you like it's easy to find west. Hopefully it's easy for people to find west. But so I don't know. If you went out there, I wonder how many people would know what to do if their GPS and all that stuff like stopped. I wonder if they would know how to use like a map and a sextant. Heck, I don't even know how to use a sextant.
I've never heard that term.
Neither do I.
Yeah,
I've never heard that.
Yeah, you guys got to watch Master and Commander. You learn a lot.
Yeah.
Well, I've seen the movie, but I don't remember enough of it to intelligently describe what you're talking about.
A sextant is this thing that they use to measure like the angles of like the horizon and like a star or something, and they can figure out where they're at with the sextant.
Well, I tell you what, I used to know where all of my friends' houses were, how to get everywhere. Where I used to grow up, I mean, when I was 16, I got my car and I would take every road in my hometown and just explore, So I knew every nook and cranny of the whole city. And then, since I moved to Charlotte, since I have GPS, I know how to get to Muscle Driver. I know how to get to Ultimate CrossFit, which is where I coach weightlifting classes. And very few other places. I mean, I don't know. I just plug it into my GPS.
Yeah, if it's starting to translate, would people know how to get around on land? These landlubbards would know how to get around if they didn't have their GPSs.
Well, I, did a lot of traveling before the advent of easy, GPSs.
You were a trucker, huh?
Yeah, I drove a truck for a while, and I managed to find my way, up to North Dakota and back. And I used to drive to Devil's Lake, North Dakota quite often, and then from there down to Houston, and then over into Arkansas and Oklahoma and places like that. And I generally could find my way around pretty well. But I will say that I believe that ability has kind of atrophied, because the whole GPS thing is very insidious. I mean, you don't have to regress to using a GPS for very long before you realize that you really don't have that big of a sense of direction anymore.
Yep. Huh? It was pretty crazy. But,
I mean, even getting around in Charlotte, going up to 485 and trying to find different places. I mean, recently I've, been going to the doctor's office a lot, and I have several, doctors or eye doctors or this doctor or that doctor that I, have gone to recently, over the last few months that are in Charlotte. And I think I probably am a little bit more lost just because of my vision or lack of it. But I could say that just getting around in Charlotte is basically, I'm unable to do so right now. Hopefully I would be able to with a little more, a little better eyesight, and hopefully that'll come in time. But, I definitely am not able to find things as easily as they used to be.
I mean, if people ask me, there's different areas of Charlotte, Matthews, Pineville, I don't know, different areas. And if people are like, hey, do you know, like that place in Pineville? And I'm like, I don't even know where Pineville is. Like, I just don't know. Like, I've probably been there. I'm sure I've been there, actually. I just plugged it into my GPS, though, and went to a CrossFit. But anyways, so I guess the forum's been blowing up a little bit with diet questions. Is that what you're saying, Glenn?
Oh, I wouldn't exactly call it blowing up, but there have been several questions on diet recently. I mean, most of them have been pretty basic. It's just people asking the same old questions that you always get asked about much protein you need, or how many fruits and vegetables you should eat, or stuff like that. Just macronutrient type questions, very basic. And I think that, there's still, it seems like a lot of people are very, confused about what is optimal, for weightlifting. And I don't even know how to answer a question of what is optimal for weightlifting, because human beings are basically, we could be garbage collectors. I mean, we can eat a huge, varied diet, and still survive, and in certain cases still thrive. So I don't even know how to answer the question as far as what is optimal. I do have some beliefs on that, though. And one is that I would say that probably my opinion on this has changed in the last 6 months, but not changed wholesale. But I have previously been a huge proponent of eating basically a lot of meat and a lot of fruits and vegetables, and trying to make the majority of your diet that isn't meat a lot of vegetables. And I think that's a healthy way to eat. And I don't think you can divorce weightlifting and health. I think that if you plan on being the best athlete that you can be, you have to approach it from a healthy perspective. I mean, for one thing, we all want to, live a decent long life. And I think that peak performance should be, best, sought if you're healthy. Obviously if you're unhealthy, that's gonna prohibit you from ever achieving the best performance. And I think a diet that is, good protein sources and lots of fruit and vegetables, especially vegetables, is probably what as human beings will give us the best health. And so that should be what gives us the best performance. Now, having said that, basically one of the questions that we got in a forum was, how much fruit should you eat? And, I don't think that you should be chowing down on 6 oranges a day. Obviously, you should eat fruit, but obviously it shouldn't be a major source of calories. I do think that fruits and vegetables together should make up a significant portion of your calories. And, the best health can probably be maintained by eating a significant amount of those combined. I don't think that protein in huge amounts is really necessary for peak performance. I think that you have to have some protein, and it's better to have good sources of protein. Lean meats and things like that are wonderful and can definitely help you with peak performance. But getting the old, 1 gram per pound of body weight, I don't think that's really necessary. I think that you'll run into a lot of flack saying that, because many people believe that it is necessary. And, if you're trying like crazy to gain weight and you're trying to gain, 30 pounds or gain 20 pounds or whatever, and, gain muscular body weight, I think it's probably smart to eat a certain amount of protein. But you don't have to go crazy on the protein. In fact, I think it's probably bad from a health perspective to really overeat protein. Now, I don't think your kidneys are going to explode or anything like that. But if you're eating huge amounts of animal protein, that's probably not the healthiest thing in the world. Overeating huge amounts of animal protein. I think you should probably, from a health perspective, keep it within reason.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, if I ate 1 gram of protein or more per pound of body weight, I think I would easily move up to my next weight class sooner than I would want to, which would be very detrimental to my weightlifting, in a way. But there's also that to balance is staying in your weight class. Other than that, I think another interesting topic in that is might be a little bit too in depth to get into here, but it's timing of when you eat things. And like, let's say if you are trying to cut down a weight class, when you should eat your your fruit after you work out, instead of something like first thing in the morning, because then your body's going to use the sugar and kind of put it into your muscles, and help you recover that way. And then you still get your fruit and the nutrients from it, but
yeah. Well, if you're not trying to cut weight and you're not trying to gain weight, I think the best thing is a varied diet. Lots of variety. And I have certainly read a lot about the paleo diet, and I think that is probably a very good diet to follow for most people from a health perspective. But when you get into weightlifting and peak performance, obviously you have to You have to start talking about what is going to allow you to gain muscular body weight, and then, perhaps you might want to, increase the good protein sources a little bit. I still don't think you have to overdo it. And when you start talking about cutting weight, then that's a whole nother topic right there. And obviously, when you talk about cutting weight, you should do so from basically something that's going to keep you in good health. Crash dieting or eating 500 calories a day or something is not really going to help your weightlifting. It's better to cut slowly, but not too slowly. I think, one thing Travis has done lately is gone down in body weight a fair amount. And I think he's seen that when you maintain a lighter body weight, even if you're eating very healthy, you're probably not going to be as strong. So there is some room to be a couple of kilos overweight and then, cut drastically so that you can be heavier closer to your competition, and then cut the body weight at the last minute. That allows you to basically be bigger while you compete.
Yeah, I can see the advantages of that. I can, even if the weight cut is hard, I just hope you get more than 2 hours to rehydrate and stuff if you cut a whole bunch of weight. But
and Travis, one thing that I think you could probably talk about intelligently here is the difference between, cutting 3 or 4 kilos in 2 days or spreading it over 5 or 6 days, and what affects you the most. I think personally a lot of lifters would rather cut amount of weight like that within 1 or 2 days, because you're going to be heavier, closer to your meat, and you're going to basically have many of the advantages of a higher body weight closer to when you compete. What do you think about that?
Well, definitely. Now, at the end of the day, when you're talking about, a diet, you really need to figure out accurately, in order to maintain your body weight, how many calories that is. So, there's 3 things when it comes to body weight and optimizing your nutrition. It's a calorie intake, and then that's majority of like your weight loss and gains is calories in, calories out. And then you have your macronutrient breakdown, and that's another big portion of it. And then you have your timing and the quality of foods, and those are smaller portions of it. So the biggest thing is your calorie intake, and then your macronutrient intake within that calorie range. And obviously the slower that you lose weight, so when you're talking about actually losing mass and losing fat, in order to maximize fat loss and minimize muscle loss, the slower you do it, the more you can maintain your lean body mass. So if you want to be on a 500 calorie per day or less deficit in order to maintain most or all of your lean body mass, and if you're trying to gain weight, the same thing. You don't want to be on thousands of calories in surplus per week. You really want to try to gain weight pretty slowly in order to make it, to keep your hormones in balance and do it correctly. I see a lot of people that just want to go up a weight class and they're eating whatever they want, and I don't really think that's the best idea for strength either. So, you gotta decide, do you want to lose body mass, or do you want to lose weight so you can make weight? And when you're talking about that, obviously, the closer to the weigh-in that you can get to your weight, the faster that you can get back up to that weight. So the bigger you can be in the competition, the better you're going to do, for the most part.
What do you think about cutting carbs as a competition approaches? I know that you have recently adopted a diet with slightly higher carbs than you're used to. Do you think that has been detrimental at all, or do you see only positives from that? And how do you think that applies to cutting weight for competition? Cutting weight the last day or 2 or 3 before you actually compete.
Well, sure. When you cut carbs, you're just, you're depleting the glycogen stores in your muscles, right? And, so you're gonna lose weight. It's not body mass necessarily, but you're going to be lighter at the weigh-in. So it's a good way to trick the scale if you want to say it that way, and retain less water. So it's definitely something that you do within a couple of days of the competition. You can't cut your carbs so much that you're used to a high carbohydrate intake, and then all of a sudden you're cutting all your carbs. So you're going to have a lot less energy and stamina.
One thing that I, have found very useful over the years that I've, had athletes that are cutting weight is not drinking for about a day before the competition. Mm-hmm. And basically cutting carbs out somewhere around the night before, maybe even 18 hours before, and going for 1 or 2 fairly long walks. And of course, what that does is basically burns through the muscle glycogen and even the liver glycogen, I guess, a little bit, and allows you to shed some water. And if you have, a half a pound to lose or something like that, not eating a light amount of carbs at supper, or not eating supper the night before, going all night, not eating breakfast the next morning, you'll usually have a lot of water loss through basically just through urination when you do that. I mean, that's for me anyway. That has always led to basically a kilo of weight loss.
Yeah, I mean, probably even more than that. Anything I said, James, that you have?
Yeah, I think. If you're doing that diet, I think like that you were describing, something that could keep you in line with what you want is get yourself measured, your body fat, and then kind of track. If you're trying to gain mass, make sure you measure what you're doing and see if you can actually support the diet. See if it's working for you. Just getting some body fat caliber measurements, or even bod pod. I think you've done that a few times. It's something to help you track your results, and that's always more important. But as far as like how much weight I lose right before a meet, I think I cut a little bit more than 1 kilo of water. And I do a lot of the similar things to what you're saying. I think I cut my carbs out a little bit earlier than that, maybe like 3 days out. I cut my carbs.
Mm-hmm.
But do you eat a ton of carbs already? Like if you're used to eating high amounts of carbs, I could see not cutting as much carbs. But if you're used to eating a fairly low carb diet, you're probably going to have to approach it a little differently.
Yeah. Well, truthfully, I eat more carbs now than I did when I was in powerlifting, and training with like eating a low carb diet for years. But now I tend to eat a little bit higher carb diet, and I actually find that I have better stamina in regards to weightlifting with a little bit higher carbs. And what I mean by higher carbs is still not ridiculous. Like I have banana and honey with my breakfast, or something like that. Like this morning I actually had, what was it called? Greek yogurt. And I mean, that has a lot of carbohydrates in it. So I have been eating more carbs, but 3 days out, it doesn't affect me that much. Usually if I cut my carbs for like 6 or 7 days, then I would really start feeling I would be delirious. So
yeah, I think as just strength athletes in general, the low carb, extra low carb thing has kind of run its course. I think a lot of people would say exactly what you're saying, is that, you're just going to feel better, with a moderate amount of carbs and not necessarily a super low carb diet. And I think that for most athletes, however many carbs you can get through vegetables, obviously I'm not talking about mounds and mounds of corn or something like that, but most green vegetables, those are good carbs. Those are nutritious things that most people don't eat enough of, but they're not going to hurt you as far as, they're not like eating white bread or something like that. The more carbs that you can get out of, if you can eat, I don't know how many people like this, but if you can eat a ton of asparagus or something like that, that's good nutrition.
Yeah.
But yet it also has carbs in it.
Yeah.
But it's going to be good carbs. It's going to be nutritious. It's going to be the type of thing that fits very well in an athlete's diet.
And it's hard to eat that many asparagus.
It's
or
hard
vegetables.
to overeat something like that. I mean, it's easy to overeat something like bread.
Or corn.
Or corn.
Yeah.
But it's hard to eat low-carb food. It's hard to overeat, I guess you should say. And so basically you can eat almost as much as you want of those type of carb sources and still be fine. You know, you can even overeat it a little bit, you know, and it's healthy.
Oh, don't overeat your spinach.
Yeah.
Oh, that was my childhood.
Have you ever been able to eat spinach out of a can?
Yeah, well, I don't want to go back to this and talk about it some more. But living on a boat.
Living on a boat.
And you got Popeye as your role model. You eat spinach out of a can.
Yeah.
I mean, living on a boat, you don't have access to fresh vegetables, but you have access to a lot of canned food.
Yeah. Well, the thought of spinach out of a can kind of grosses me out. I mean, I've eaten some spinach in my life. Probably not as much as you, but the thought of canned spinach, it doesn't really give me good feelings, you know?
Well, yeah. Could you imagine canned asparagus? That freaks me out. I can do spinach, but canned asparagus?
I wouldn't go so far as to say it freaks me out, but I don't think it'd be good. You know, it doesn't sound tasty to me.
I mean, if Popeye did it, I mean, that just throws everything out of the window. If there's anything wrong with it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
He did it. He also sniffed garlic. Was it garlic or onions? He sniffed onions.
I don't know.
That was his original power.
Really?
Yeah.
Sniffing onions.
And then Bruno
and he didn't cry.
Took his onions away from him, and then threw him into a field of spinach, and his mouth got stuffed with spinach. And then he got his muscles back, and then he went and beat him up.
Forearms got huge.
Yep.
Yeah, spinach does give you some huge forearms.
Got to be honest, I didn't watch the episodes, but I did eat Popeye spinach growing up. My mom always made it and said it would make you strong, so I did it. I ate it. But
Cool. Well, I think
Glenn's
that
not impressed.
yeah. Well, no, you know, anything that makes you eat more green vegetables or leafy green vegetables or any type of leafy or not leafy, you know, any kind of vegetables are good for you, and they're filling, they're nutritious, et cetera, and probably most of us could stand to eat more of that and less, you know, protein from meat sources from a health standpoint. And I say that from a health standpoint because, as most of you know, if you've listened to this podcast for a while, I had a stroke not long ago, and so obviously I'm thinking a little bit more about health than I used to. And I feel like I've done a pretty good job in the last month or two in making some changes in my diet and things like that. And there's no doubt that it's harder to eat in a manner that, you know, supports gaining strength and things like that if you're eating a ton of vegetables and not much red meat or any kind of meat. I think, you know, there's probably more healthy and less healthy red or meat sources. But if you're eating lean meat and protein, you still want to make sure you get a certain percentage of your food intake from the vegetable world. There's no doubt that that's going to be healthier in the long term than just eating a ton of meat.
Yeah. You know, something else that we didn't touch on yet, I think, is fat. I mean, we have been talking a lot about protein and carbs, but as far as fat goes, if you're eating a whole bunch of spinach or something and you're cooking broccoli and carrots and you're steaming them or something, if you want to make them taste better, put some butter on there, some organic salted butter, and just put a little bit on top, and it'll make the vegetables much easier to eat. And I mean, organic butter is pretty good. I mean, you got good fats that you can get out of that.
Yeah.
And
I don't think I have not been converted entirely to the vegetable world. You know, I don't think that butter is bad for you. I like butter.
Now margarine,
Margarine's bad for you, I think.
Bad.
But I don't think that good butter. I like the Kerrygold, the Irish butter.
Oh yeah, I think Travis has some of that in the refrigerator.
Yeah, I don't eat it much, but it is pretty good butter.
It's good butter, and I don't think that is bad for you. I still refuse to believe that, like milk. I don't think, one of my doctors who is kind of a health nut, is basically trying to turn me into a vegetarian, which isn't going to happen, but he's constantly talking about how you shouldn't eat any milk products. You shouldn't eat cheese. You shouldn't have butter. You shouldn't have this. And I mean, if in order to live a long, healthy life, you can't have cheese or any kind of, egg products or milk products like that, I might not want to live a long life all that bad. I mean, those things are things that, are good to eat, and I don't think they're all that unhealthy. I don't think in a context of like a paleo type diet where you're eating a lot of vegetables and good, healthy, lean sources of protein that there's anything to be scared of by having butter, on your vegetables or something like that.
A little bit of cheese will go a long way.
Well, I have not had cheese on like broccoli or cauliflower in a long time.
You can overdo the broccoli and cheese, though. I mean, that stuff's good. I mean, you get carried away and you just it's like soup, but instead of broth, it's cheese.
Yeah, you can get carried away with it, but within reason, it's good and healthy to eat. I don't think
a little bit of cheese here and there.
Yeah, yeah. I always think about what did our grandparents eat. A lot of our grandparents ate a lot of eggs and a lot of cheese type products and things like that, and by and large, did not have a lot of trouble with it. It's been mostly since we started eating highly processed foods that we've all seemingly developed more and more health problems. And so, in my opinion, the answer is not to vilify things like butter or vilify cheese or something like that.
One thing they don't take into account is, people have been dying forever. People didn't just start dying.
Yeah.
Certain diagnoses are now more popular, but that doesn't mean that those things didn't happen before. People have been dying forever. So, definitely, there are definitely things that are known to be healthy and things that are known to not be healthy. And a lot of it is just common sense.
Yeah.
I think most of your strength gains, now anytime you're on a calorie deficit for a long time, which is, you're not going to be making a lot of strength gains, but at the same time, I think you make your best strength gains on a maintenance diet, on your caloric intake and or a very small calorie surplus. I don't think that you make big strength gains when you're on a calorie deficit or on a very, very large calorie surplus.
Yeah. Now, one thing that we haven't really hit on is bulk in your stomach. And that, of course, has more to do with cutting weight than anything else. One thing that I have been, that I have recognized for a long time because I was a wrestler in a previous lifetime. It was very, very, very adamant about, things like the weight cut, because I did it every week. In high school wrestling, you basically cut weight for a competition every week.
Yeah.
And so you have to stay fairly close to the weight. And at least, I think we had our matches on Thursday. So every Thursday, I was trying to make weight basically. And of course, you're not wanting to eat a high bulk diet Wednesday night because that's going to stick with you. It may not make you fatter, but it's going to weigh a lot in your stomach.
Yeah.
What do you think about what makes up the macronutrients, the fiber, things like that in your diet over the last 2 or 3 days before you make weight?
Well, something that I would say about that is different things are more stressful for your body to digest too. I kind of going off topic on that one, but if you're eating a whole bunch of food and trying to get stronger and bigger at the same time, you got to realize that you're eating all this food, and that's stressful in your digestive system. That could be causing too why you're not getting stronger.
Mm-hmm. A lot of inflammation and
inflammation is a factor too. If you're eating a lot, or if you're eating hard to digest things, like the week before a meat, even if it's good and hard to digest things like steak. Steak is a very hard thing to digest. Ground beef is easier. Chicken is even easier, I think. I think that has a huge factor to play into there because it's going to depend on how long it stays in your body and all that. Then you're really just trying to de-stress that whole week before a competition.
Definitely. Well, I think, we all probably have our favorite foods and the foods that normally react well with us. Some things give you a stomach ache. Some things, don't. And, foods that you digest well and things like that are obviously things that you want to eat prior to competition. You don't want to be eating a huge T-bone steak, when you're trying to cut weight before competition. One, because it's, stressful to your digestive system, and one is because it sits in your stomach for a long time.
Yeah, and if you get it at a restaurant, it's probably pretty salty. And then you're going to
Probably
retain
so.
more. Who knows?
So.
So you're going to have to drink 5 gallons of water so that you just pee constantly for the next 2 days before weigh-ins.
Yeah.
If you eat a reasonable diet, low salt, obviously, you don't want to load up on the sodium before, right before competition, and you keep things reasonable. I think maybe I'm overusing that word, but we can all go a little haywire from time to time, and I certainly have on my diet, in many different ways. But if you keep a varied diet, cut down on the amount of bulk, maybe the day or two before competition. Make sure you cut down on the salt. We even have some teammates that use, what kind of water, Travis, that doesn't have sodium in it?
Distilled water?
Distilled water. We have some teammates that use distilled water for the day or two, before competition, so they don't get any sodium whatsoever. And that helps. If you do those things, you should be good for weigh-in. As long as you're not way overweight, that is. You should you lose a kilo or even a couple of kilos through loss of bulk in your digestive system and through, a little loss of muscle glycogen or liver glycogen immediately before the weigh-in, and the amount of water that cuts out naturally, you're going to be okay, basically. There's not much more you can do. We all would like to weigh in at 69 kilos when we're normally 85, but that's not going to happen, obviously. That's not going to happen in any kind of a healthy way, and it's not going to make us better lifters. So you've got to be close to your weight, before you attempt to make weight. And when you make weight, do it with a mild cut of calories and a cut of your sodium intake, and a cut of the amount of bulk that's in your diet, and be smart about it. You should be able to, again, do without supper or do without any calories the night before and be able to wake up, along with maybe a walk or two. That's a trick that I've always liked as a, major part of making weight, is just simply going on a pretty non-stressful, short little, maybe a half an hour, maybe an hour walk to get your blood going. I think it calms you down before competition, and it also can, help you run through the last little bit of muscle glycogen, to help you cut weight. Mm-hmm. And you should be as okay as you're going to be.
Yeah. Something that I do, we usually max out on Fridays, and we have our morning session, and then we have our afternoon session when we max out. When I'm cutting weight for a competition, I like to treat my weight cut, as a morning session almost. So if I would take a walk, or I'd put something around my neck to kind of keep all the heat in, maybe a sauna suit, and or go in the sauna actually, and kind of treat that as my morning session. And that's something you do all the time if you do 2 sessions on your max out day, and it's familiar to you, and it's just normal, and you have enough time to recover to go out and do your max.
Well, in that, you kind of hit on something that we haven't talked about yet that deals with the subject matter, and that's practicing your weight cut. And I think entirely too many people don't practice their weight cut. They come in to making weight for a major competition, something that really matters, something that they really want to do their best, and they haven't done anything to do with their weight cut, and they have no idea how they're going to react to cutting weight. And that's obviously a mistake. By the time you get to a weight cut for a major competition, you should know exactly how you're going to react to it. Number one, you should have a scale that is fairly accurate, that you know what you weigh immediately before you go to bed, how much you weigh immediately after you wake up, so that you can gauge accurately. And you have done that, weighed before you go to bed and again in the morning, every day for the past 2 weeks, so that you can accurately gauge, I'm losing roughly 1 kilo, let's just say, for example, every night. So I can count on weighing 1 kilo less when I wake up in the morning than I did the night before. That can certainly give you a lot more peace of mind when you're going to bed.
When you're not always gonna, you need to weigh yourself on a semi-regular basis at different points in the day, because you don't always compete at the same time. So you kind of got to know what's my natural floating body weight at 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and eating similar things most days, so that you kind of have an idea.
Well, knowing what it is and knowing how much you normally lose overnight can really give you a lot more peace of mind, though, when you're cutting for a competition and trying to figure exactly what you are going to weigh come, the time for weigh-in. I mean, that can certainly resolve a lot of the worry that you would normally have.
Yeah, and give you a better competition because of that. Less worry is always better.
And like James said, if you kind of treating the last few workouts or last few weeks as a kind of competition cut, so that you basically know, for instance, let's say that you get up and go to the gym without having eaten any huge breakfast or anything like that. How is that going to affect you? You basically, if you don't practice it, you don't know. You could get up and have a bowl of oatmeal and a banana and get diarrhea. That's would be a bad thing. But if you have never done that, you don't know how eating those foods on an empty stomach is going to affect you. You should be eating the same things on a regular basis, and especially as you're cutting weight or as you're getting ready to cut weight, you should pay close attention to what you eat and how you feel and what you weigh, in the morning, at night, etc., so that everything is expected. You don't you aren't hit with any surprises.
I got hit with a surprise at the World Championships. I got this to go lunch for after I weighed in, and somebody else got it before me. I think it was Morgan, and she got this nice sandwich with turkey or something. It was a good amount of turkey on it. I was like, wow, that looks good, because I saw her eating it, or she took a picture of it or something. I don't know. So I got one, and I was like, oh, sweet, I'm gonna eat this. I didn't look at it before I weighed in, because I don't want to be looking at food. I'm hungry. And so then I weighed in, and then I got my sandwich, and it was a piece of bread with 2 slices of cheese on it.
Son of a bitch.
I know.
No turkey or anything.
Nothing. Just 2 slices of cheese. 2 slices of cheese?
How did that happen, James?
I don't know, but I got a cheese sandwich. It wasn't even like a grilled cheese sandwich. It was like 2 cold pieces of cheese. I was quite disappointed. But I didn't let it bother me.
Over in Poland, I guess that's not uncommon just to have cheese sandwiches, but yeah. So know what you're eating and know what you got in your hand, because
don't get stuck with the cheese sandwich.
Don't get stuck with
Nobody
the cheese
got time
sandwich.
for that.
Well, we are running out of time, guys. We got to go train. Any last thoughts on any of this?
Well, I hope some of this was halfway helpful for some people. I know it's all kind of common sense, but I think some of it's important.
Yeah, give you a little bit of direction, not a exact guide of what to do, but hopefully you can figure it out on your own.
A lot of it's just common sense.
Yep.
Keep track of what's going on.
No, I definitely think that, so we're giving you the weightlifter's perspective, like the practical perspective. Now, the guy that I'm working with, Nick Shaw from Renaissance Periodization, the company, I think I'm going to have him on the podcast in the next couple weeks. And he might give a lot more details and give some interesting input. So, be on the lookout for that. He might nerd it up a little bit and, give a little different perspective. And, so it might be a topic that we're going to be talking about again soon. as far as the weightlifting scoop goes, the Teespring campaign, it ended. Everybody should be getting their shirts very soon if you haven't already. Tag us on Facebook if you get one. And
I saw somebody wearing a weightlifting scoop shirt on a YouTube video.
I actually did, yeah. So that was pretty awesome. Becca tagged me in that, so that was cool. So anyways, check that out. And if you guys don't have anything,
well, I am ready to go squat.
yeah,
I am going
He's
to
up to 70.
attempt. I'm going to attempt 70 kilos today. So everybody, wish me luck. This will be my heaviest weight. It's my 4th workout post-stroke, and my heaviest weight I've attempted so far. And I'm going to actually put 2 plates on the bar.
Oh, man.
One 10-kilo plate.
That'll make it look real good.
One 15-kilo plate.
Dang.
So, wish me luck for that.
Coach, you're cheating. You're getting extra oscillation putting the heavier plate on the outside.
I'll take anything I can get, Travis. I'll take anything I can get.
Well, I mean, if you're going to do that, you could put a little 2.5 on there, too, and use a women's bar.
I'm not using a women's bar. But of course I have already told Morgan that she's the first one on my list as far as possible candidate for defeat in the squats.
She's a good squatter too.
I realize that I'm not going to be
squat for a little bit.
I'm not going to be coming for Travis anytime soon, but I've already told Morgan that she is firmly in my sights, and I am going to out squat her sometime soon.
Don just left. He was taking a nap, and then when you said you were going to hit 70 kilos, I think he laughed a little bit, and I think he's warming up for 200 pounds today. So,
dang,
that's 91 kilos.
91 kilos.
Well, son of a bitch.
Anyways, we're going to go see our coaches battle it out. I would expect Glenn will be squatting much bigger weights here in about 3 months, but
well, I hope.
Anyways, we're going to be training hard, and we will see you guys later on this week.
See you later.